state of South Carolina is one of the top 10 states in the nation with the highest number of inmates on death row. Most of these inmates are poor and African American, and nearly 70% of them live with some type of mental illness. These are the harsh realities of South Carolina's death row, and Justice 360 is the leading organization in the state working to address the concerns raised by these discrepancies. I recently sat down with Executive Director Mandy Medlock and Fellowship Attorney Zoe Jones of Justice 360 to learn more about their mission to reform policies and practices in capital proceedings. Mandy, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today. Wanted to start off, would you tell us a little bit about what you do here at Justice 360?
Well, my job as the executive director is really to be the face of the organization. I have a legal team that works in the office and on cases, and they are busy representing the men on death row in South Carolina. So my job is to reach out to the public via online or the press in any way capable that I'm capable of to get the information out to the public about why this issue is important to the people of the state of South Carolina.
Okay, so how long has Justice 360 been operating here in Columbia?
Well, the organization was founded in 1988, so we've been hard at work for a long time.
Okay, and how long have you been with the organization?
I came on board in July of 2015.
Okay. Now, what are some of the things that you're doing or some of the cases that you're working on here in South Carolina?
Yeah, well, the organization was founded originally to represent men facing a death sentence in the state of South Carolina. And so we represent about, I'd say, just over a dozen men on death row right now. We specifically have an interesting case. His name is Johnny Bennett, and he's been in the news recently because his case is facing appeal in the Fourth Circuit. And I believe one of my attorneys is going to talk with you later about Johnny's case and some of the racial discrepancies going on in his case that are very interesting. What a lot of people don't understand about the death penalty is that it's not equitably applied. There are so many questions about how it's applied. There are no rich men on death row. There aren't a lot of white guys on death row. Most of the men on death row have some type of mental health concern. A lot of men have intellectual disability. There are just lots of concerns about the death penalty, and we work to address those here.
Okay. So have you worked in this field for a while? Tell me a little bit, based on what I want to know, is why did you choose this? Is this a cause that you're passionate about?
Well, yeah, I am. I mean, I'm passionate about justice. Mm-hmm. My background really came together here at Justice 360. Prior to Justice 360, I was the director at a different nonprofit called NAMI, which stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So I was in the mental health field for a long time. And of course, a lot of overlap here at Justice 360 when we know that about 70% of the men on death row live with some type of severe mental illness. Prior to my work at NAMI, I was at a criminal defense law firm as the office manager for about 8 years. So I was exposed at that time to just the outright discrepancies that are faced every day in the criminal justice system. I mean, even though we didn't represent death row cases, capital cases, just with armed robberies or DUIs or just your basic cases, you see at mid-level cases like that the racial discrepancies and the economic discrepancies that go on that early in the criminal justice system.
Okay. How does South Carolina compare to other states as far as inmates on death row?
Well, our population is I think we're number 7 in the nation for the number, 7th highest in the nation for the number of inmates on death row. So it's not something to be proud of.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the mission. Do you guys only work with death row cases, or how do you go about choosing the cases?
Yeah. Well, historically, that has been our focus. We've been focused on capital cases. However, we are starting to branch out. We are in the process of rewriting our mission right now, and we are working on some juvenile cases, some juveniles that have been sentenced to life without parole. And when you talk to one of my attorneys later that works here on my staff, she can explain more about what we're doing in that realm. And so we're going to be working more on juvenile cases. We're going to be taking on some more innocence cases and doing some more work like that. So we are definitely in a time frame of expansion.
Okay. Do you guys have put on any type of community events, or do you guys have any conferences or anything coming up to kind of help citizens be more aware of what you guys are doing here in the Midlands and in South Carolina?
Yeah, we have 2 exciting events coming up. In September, we have a film showing at the Nickelodeon Theater on September the 21st, and it's called There Will Be No Stay. And it's a very interesting take on the effect of an execution on the execution team. Because a lot of times we think about the defendant, or we think about the victims or their family members, but what folks don't think about is the people that work in the prison system, and the fact that they have to carry out this execution against people that they've worked with and they've taken care of for years and years. And so this film actually examines how the execution affects those men in the prison system. It's a very interesting and really heartbreaking examination of that. So that is at the Nickelodeon Theater on Main Street, September 21st in the evening. And then, even more exciting, is in November 17th, we are hosting Brian Stevenson, who is a nationally known civil rights attorney who has done lots of death penalty work himself. He is an executive director of a nonprofit out of Alabama called the Equal Justice Initiative. We are hosting him at the Township Auditorium on the evening of November 17th, and it's a free event. But we want everybody in the community to come and listen to him, because he is really at the forefront of changing America right now as far as social justice is concerned.
Okay. Mandy, if somebody wanted to reach out to you or your organization to find out more information or how they can get involved with what you guys have going on here, how would they do that?
Well, we have a great website. We launched a new website earlier this year, and it's justice360sc.org. And our phone number's up there, our email address is up there. They can just click on that, and it all comes straight to me, actually. So that's a good way to reach us. We're on Facebook, Justice360SC, and we also have a Twitter handle as well, Justice360SC.
Okay, Mandy, thank you for taking time to sit down with me.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about the type of cases that you work on here with Justice 360.
Well, we handle a variety of cases. Historically at Justice 360, we have focused on death penalty defense work. So primarily our client base are men who have been sentenced to death in South Carolina. Currently, there's only men on death row.
Okay.
In addition to that, we also have started to do some juvenile defense work for juveniles facing life without parole. There have been some recent decisions from the Supreme Court of the United States allowing for resentencing of many people who were sentenced as juveniles. So we are handling a few of those cases as well. And then from time to time, we take other cases that we feel have an opportunity for impact litigation, or cases where we believe somebody may be innocent. We're willing to work on those types of cases, but it is primarily death penalty defense work.
Okay. What are some of the, when you're looking at a case and the organization is picking a case to work on, what are some of the criteria that you look at when looking at a case to kind of say this case is important, or this factor happened in this case?
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
So historically, Justice 360, we have somewhat of a specialty in issues of racial justice. We take many cases where there are specifically legal issues having to do with race. And so we often take cases that have those kinds of issues specifically. Additionally, we take cases with important legal issues that we feel there's the opportunity for some litigation that can help in future cases.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Recently in the news that you guys have been working on the Bennett case, and I believe it was in March, the judge vacated his death sentence. Could you tell me a little bit about that case?
Yes, so that is the case of Johnny Bennett. He's a client of another attorney at our office, Lindsay Van. And Johnny Bennett's case is pretty upsetting. There's evidence in that case that not only did the prosecutor in the case, Johnny Myers, inject all kinds of racial issues into the case that really had absolutely nothing to do with the case. On top of that, it was also later discovered that one of the jurors was extremely racist and believed kind of that the whole point, the whole reason that Johnny had done this crime was that he was just a dumb nigger.
Wow. So, what are some of the things that you guys are doing as far as, do you just offer legal help, or are you guys do you have trial attorneys, or is it limited to research? Tell me a little bit how you get involved and help your clients.
So the attorneys in this office are the attorneys for the clients. It's
Okay.
not simply a research position or an assistance position. What we do here is appellate litigation, so we don't generally handle trials.
Okay.
After the trial is over, an attorney is appointed in death penalty cases to review the case, to see what errors occurred, generally whether trial counsel had done a sufficient job, other errors that may have occurred in the cases. There's all different kinds. And that's primarily what we do. We do this on the state level, and we do this also in the federal courts.
Tell me a little bit about some of the other initiatives that you guys work on as well.
So not only do we want to do legal representation, we also want to be a resource in the community for this type of work. We do consulting work with other attorneys who are handling capital cases, attorneys who are interested in getting into this field in capital defense work. They come to our office, we offer resources, we help get them the training that they need to do that work appropriately. On top of that, we also try and do advocacy work in the community outside of the legal field. So as Mandy mentioned, we try to host community events. Mandy may go with attorneys from our office to speak at local organizations that are interested in hearing often about the racial disparities in the criminal justice system. Another issue of importance to people is the kind of mental illness that really runs rampant in the system and often goes untreated and causes people to commit violent crimes that they might not otherwise commit.
Okay. Mandy mentioned earlier that you guys will start working with juveniles in the school to prison pipeline.
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So in a landmark case, the Supreme Court decided, Miller versus Alabama, that juveniles could not be sentenced to mandatory life without parole. And they later made that case retroactive, meaning that every person in the United States who had been sentenced to mandatory life without parole as a juvenile would have the opportunity to get a new sentence. In South Carolina, our court took that a step further and said that there would be new sentences not just for people who were sentenced to mandatory life without parole, but also discretionary. So pretty much anybody in the entire state who received a sentence of life without parole as a juvenile is now going to be resentenced. And there's about 40 cases or so in the state. The defendants are majority black, more than majority, about 80%. And so that's kind of in line with our issues of racial justice. So we are starting to handle some of those cases. We've created training sessions, resource materials for people going forward who are interested in working on these cases. And we really see it as akin to death penalty cases, really. Sentencing a juvenile to life without parole is the possible harshest sentence that they can get under the law. So it is a death sentence for kids. And connected to that, we also are trying to raise awareness about the school to prison pipeline. And basically what this is it's been in the news lately, but oftentimes people don't fully understand. You have these kind of two channels kids are getting suspended, getting expelled, they're out in the streets, they have nothing to do except get in trouble. And they're getting suspended for silly things like having their cell phone in class, swearing in class, those kinds of things that historically have just been dealt by the teachers and not in any kind of out-of-school punishment. On top of that, you also have more officers in schools, and this is leading to actual arrests happening as a result of infractions in the classroom. And this can oftentimes lead to kids going to the juvenile justice facility for a residential stay being committed. Obviously not every case ends up like that, but a sizable portion do. And this obviously very, very adversely impacts kids. The recidivism rate, once they've gone to the juvenile justice system, their likelihood of committing a more serious crime in the future, grows greatly. And basically what we're trying to do is to stop this from happening and kind of prevent these juveniles from ever even reaching us facing these serious sentences.
Okay. One last question before I let you go, Zoe. If, as far as when deciding a case to pick, do you guys do research, or could the community have an issue and give you guys a call and say, I have a case I want you to take a look at? How do you go about actually just saying, okay, we're going to work on that one and not work on that one?
Typically, we do not take cases that we're just called from a member of the community asked to take the case. Death penalty cases and these serious juvenile offenses aren't really that frequent, so thankfully not that many people could call us about one of those. However, if you do have a case that you feel is important, feel free to reach out to us, give us a call, and we can probably help refer you to the right people to handle the case, serve as a resource. We do tap into the community once we do have cases, especially cases like the Bennett case that have important social justice aspects. We ask people to, share this story, call your local representative, speak in your community about it, and try and spread awareness. So that's really how we're more tapped in the community when it comes to our cases.
Okay. Zoe, thank you for taking time to sit down with me.
Thank you for having us.